welcome to the show, to the Epoch Times, Sophia Fisher. Tell me a little bit about your organization. Tell the name again.
It's Stop the Demand Project.
Stop the Demand Project. And one of the reasons our team really wanted you to come on here is because human trafficking seems to be kind of an issue that's really taking over nationally, and a lot more people are talking about it. So how did you get involved with it, and where's your start?
Thanks for having me, Nick. I really appreciate it. Yeah, this issue, like you mentioned, is not something that is just plaguing the United States. It's a global pandemic. I got involved in the fight against human trafficking because I saw that it was plaguing my hometown. Ohio is 5th in the nation for reported cases, and when I saw that it was affecting my hometown and it was happening in my own backyard, I realized I couldn't stay silent.
Yeah. So what have you guys been doing so far, and what's happening?
Yeah, so we launched in January of this year, so we're coming up on our 1 year, which is super exciting. And our entire goal has been to put out educational content on human trafficking. There's a lot of misinformation when it comes to human trafficking, whether that be conspiracy theories or information such as, I'm sure that you've heard this before, that it's only at the border.
Right.
That's not true, or that it only occurs in Hollywood. And sure, there are cases like Jeffrey Epstein, and those do exist, and there are people in Hollywood, but it's happening in rural America, it's happening in the cities, it's in every single zip code. And our goal at Stop the Demand Project has been to put out educational content that is true, so we ultimately are reducing this demand for human trafficking.
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit before, and I mentioned that I've had various jobs, and one of the people I worked with was like, I refuse to go to this airport because I believe I'm going to get sex trafficked there. What are signs? What are things? She could have been right. I didn't do the research. I didn't look into it. But I guess my question is, what is signs or things that we could prevent? Is there hot spots? Are there places that we should avoid? Are there any techniques that we can do to not get sex trafficked? I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to put it.
Having that fear is definitely a real thing, and I don't want to downplay your friend's story. There are definitely places where human trafficking can occur more than others, but the sad reality is that it's in every single zip code in this country. When we talk about human trafficking, I divide it into 3 areas. First is sexual exploitation, sex trafficking. Then there's labor trafficking and organ harvesting. The 2 most common types of human trafficking in this country are labor trafficking and sex trafficking. The most common form of recruitment in this country is through familiar persons. And so when your friend talks about being sex trafficked at the airport, not that that's not a real concern, but most of the time victims in America specifically are being trafficked by someone that they know, whether that be a significant other, family member, neighbor. That is usually how it occurs. It's not usually how you would see it in like the Taken movie series, for example, where it's the stranger taking the victim. Of course that can happen, but it's very rare.
I think a lot of people see a lot of movies and they put a lot. What are some of the craziest stories that you've had to deal with, and any testimonials that you've been received that it just kind of blew you away?
Yeah, over the summer I had the opportunity to work alongside the Ohio Attorney General's office, and that's where I'm based in Akron, Ohio. And we were working on a case, and this is not new in the fight. This happens quite a bit across this country as well as in other countries, but the mother was selling the daughter for drug money, and she was 12 years old. Again, a familiar person, right? She was so desperate to have her fix with drugs that she was willing to sell her own daughter for it. I've seen a lot of the cases that I worked on or had a chance to research or even meeting people. Many have been trafficked by a family member, a parental figure, and a lot of them have been trafficked at a very young age. So if you think back to when you were a young kid, that's a very early age to where you are still learning so much about the world, right? Your brain is still forming. It forms until you're 25, right? So think about that young of an age, 7 years old. My friend works in this field. The youngest kid she's rescued has been 4 years old. So think about a kid at that age who is still learning so much. They might not even realize they're a victim of human trafficking. And I think there's great work being done, and I'm a big advocate for awareness. That's what our organization is all about. But if someone ever suspects someone's a victim of human trafficking, the number one thing you should never do is ask them, do you think you're a victim of human trafficking? Because good chance is that they probably don't even know what that means. If let's say, making an example, right? Let's say dad is sex trafficking daughter. Let's say he's been grooming her at a very young age. She's still in school. She's still going to doctor's appointments. She's still going through her normal routine. How are people going to know she's a victim? Well, she's having her vulnerabilities exploited. So to answer your question earlier about common signs, what are things that are being done in someone's life that are reducing their autonomy? Is she freely able to move all the time? And I understand she is still a child and she has her parents' supervision, right? But what are things being done that she can't make those decisions and she can't decide certain things about her own body? This is a perfect example of a type of trafficking that we're seeing in America taking place in the very home, right?
Right. Would you say there's a stereotype of a person that gets trafficked? And is it come from, and I may say that in a way, is it lower income housing that we see most trafficked children? Because you mentioned your story about a mom selling for money.
Yep.
To me, in my eyes, it seems like that's probably in more of a lower income area. Is that where we're seeing a lot of trafficking coming from? Or is it in all spectrums in America?
There's a phrase I heard a few weeks ago. It's traffickers don't discriminate. Vulnerabilities can be a variety of things, whether that be a broken family. Let's say again, boys are victims as well. Let's say a girl hates her home life and she is on social media complaining about it, or people in her life know that she isn't very fond of her home life. A trafficker in that situation is going to see that and start to calculate ways in which he or she can go in and say, this is what I'm going to promise, here's how I can manipulate, and here's how I can facilitate a grooming process. Vulnerabilities can look different. I would definitely say that trafficking can happen in rural areas, low-income places, but it's happening in big cities as well. The average person that buys sex, I believe, makes over $100,000 and has like 2 kids. So when it comes to educating on human trafficking, I don't even think, in my opinion, that a lot of these people that are actually buying sex understand that they're buying into this big problem. I think what they think in their head is, I'm buying from a prostitute that is willingly putting their body up for this. That's not the case a lot of the times. And even in prostitution, there's so much exploitation. But a lot of the times, I think it's the lack of education that is causing this issue to continue to happen in this country. And I think education is a big point and where we can really make a difference. Yeah.
So one thing that's at the Epoch Times that we cover a lot is we do cover a lot of trafficking, especially with the Falun Gong and a lot of the organ harvesting that happened in China. Do you get into any of the international and any of that kind of trafficking?
We
as
do.
Well?
We've been speaking out a lot about what's happening with the Uyghur Muslims, especially right now in China. It's a terrible thing that China is doing right now, inflicting human rights abuses on their people. They're actually estimating that it's larger than the Holocaust, and the CCP is covering this up. At Stop the Demand Project, we have a wonderful team of people writing about not only what is happening in China, but human trafficking here in the U.S. We're new, we're almost a year old, so we're trying to expand and touch on a lot of these issues, but our goal is to not only focus on human trafficking, but other human rights abuses, as you mentioned.
Yeah. One thing that we like to do, especially on my show, Game Changers, is try to bring inspiration and hope to young people.
I love that.
About really tough issues.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can feel hopeless.
Yep.
So final question for you is, what kind of hope can we bring? Is there going to be, can we make a difference in this fight, and can we win?
100%. This fight is really hard. There are days when I feel so defeated and when I burn out and I'm drained. But what keeps me going is knowing that I can make a difference. The goal isn't to eradicate all human trafficking. I wish we could. Sadly, it's not possible. But I want people that are listening to feel inspired that they can make a difference. If it's one person that you educated, that's huge. If it's one person you help leave the life of human trafficking, that's amazing. Whether it's volunteering your time or donating, you can make a huge difference. Now with social media and technology today, it's as easy as sharing an Instagram post or tweeting something, and trust me, that can make a huge impact.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you,
stopping
Nick.
by.
I
really
appreciate
appreciate you coming. We got to follow up. I want to do another interview with you here soon, and we got to do a follow-up.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sophia.
Thanks so much, Nick.